Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Bill Indiana. Today I'm going to do a partial playthrough and review for a game that's new to our shelves, Barenpark. Let's get to the table. Alright, so I've got Barenpark set up here on the table and all the places in position for a 3-player game. I'm going to talk to you about what the components are, give you a very brief partial playthrough so you can get a feel for how the game moves, and show you some of the components up close in that process, and then in the end give you a review for what I think of the game Barenpark. So in the game, the setup actually is a little bit time consuming, but not very difficult once you understand how to set it up. There's this main board right here, and you have all the polyomino tiles positioned on that main board. There are 4 shapes of what's called green tiles, and you put those just here in this far end of the board. There are 4 shapes that are the animal houses, and you put those right here in this little portion of the board. And there are all these various shapes that are the animal enclosures, and they go on this major part of the board. So those are the polyomino tiles. On the board itself, though, there's some cues as to how many you place and how you place them. So, for instance, underneath this, you can see it's green, and there's the shape for it. So you know that that piece goes right there. And then this one you can see is supposed to be yellow and has this shape, so you know to put that right there. So these are super easy. You just put them down and the spot that fits both their color and their shape. For these, they also have the shape underneath and some imagery to help you know which one goes there. And because they all have different shapes, it's pretty easy to figure that out. I also like that they have some of the scientific names for different animals in the game on the board printed underneath those symbols. It's kind of cool. Now, there are also little icons on the board, which you probably can't see on the camera, but this, for instance, has a 2-player icon, and it shows you need the 6, 4, and the 2 here. Of these tiles in the animal houses, for instance, there's a 1 through 7. And you can see on the top of each of these, there's just a 6, the way I've set it up, because the 3-player game says you use 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So I've taken the 1 and the 7 out and left them in the box. And if you have 4 players, it shows you use all 7 through 1. Over here in these, it shows a little number here, 10. So you've got 10 of these and 10 of these no matter what, regardless of the number of players in the game. And then over here, it shows 2 players, you use 8 of these 2. And if it's 3 players, you use 12. And if it's 4 players, you use all 16. So I have 12 of each, the other 4 of each put back in the board. So the little icons and numbers on this main player board really do help you set it up pretty easily and quickly. So even though there's a lot of pieces, if they're sorted well in your box, it doesn't take too long to just put them where they go on the main table. Now, besides the main board with all of the different polyominoes, you also have these tracts or these sections for your park that you're going to be growing. You also have these starting tiles for the park. So this is set up as a 3-player game. So we've got Barenpark, Bjornpark, and Barenpark. I don't know. I don't speak German or Dutch or whatever those are. So, those are the 3 starting parks. And then I also have over here, these are an expert variant, or maybe not expert, but an advanced variant where you have achievement tiles that you're trying to accomplish. And I'll explain those in a little bit. And then over here, you've got your bear statues. And this is one thing you do have to look in the rule book that's not explained on the board anywhere. For the statues, there is 1 through 16. And then for different player counts, you use different numbers of statues starting at different values. So I've got from statue 3 to 14 here for a 3-player game. So those are all the components. Let me show you a close-up of one of these starting tiles and then one of these growth tiles for your park to show you a little bit closer what those icons look like and what each icon does. All right, so here you can see on this tile, we've got several different images on our bear park, and this little banner here is the entrance of your park. And there are these green wheelbarrows, and if you put a polyomino tile down on the board that covers one of those green wheelbarrows, or more than one, then you're going to be able to choose one of the green tiles at the far left of that main player board, which include toilets, playgrounds, food court lines, and then rivers, lazy rivers. You can also see there's these white concrete trucks. If you cover a white concrete truck square, or more than one, as you lay down a polyomino tile on your board, then you would get to choose one of the animal houses. So in the second from the left column on that main board that I showed you. If you cover up these people, that is when you would get to place another portion to your park. And then this part here is where the statue goes, and you can never cover that up until everything else on this tile is complete. Then you can put a statue in that spot that is reserved. So we've got this pit with the caution tape around it, and that's reserved for the statue only after all the other squares on this tile are completed. If you do lay a polyomino over this one with the working crew, then you would get another tile to add to your park. And so if this was my main tile here, I'll just scoot it off to the side. I could put this here and expand my park once I have covered this square that has the workers on it. And you can see there, none of the starting tiles have these excavator icons, but they are on the expansion tiles as you grow your park. And the excavator tile or squares on these tiles enable you to grow and place the polyomino animal enclosures, the ones that take up the majority of the board, and there's only one of each of those. So now back to the main board. I don't think I mentioned this completely before. As I said, you know how many of each of these tiles to put based on what the board says. If it's not clear from the video, there's only one of each of these three. So these are the koala bear enclosures. There's just three, and the number on them tells you how many points they're worth. So this is 6, 7, and 8. And these are the polar bear enclosures in 6, 7, and 8 point tiles, depending on their size. The goby bears are yellow, and the panda bears are gray. And it's funny, in the instructions they even talk about the fact that they know koala bears aren't actually bears, but because they're so cute, we're going to include them in the park anyway. So there is only one of each of these different shapes. So there's 3 with koalas, 3 with polar, 3 with goby, and 3 with panda bears. For these, they're numbered as I mentioned, from 6 through 2 for a 3-player game, and it starts with 6 on top, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, without the 1, sorry, for a 3-player game. And you're pulling them off the top. So the first player to play one of these tiles would get the 6-pointer, and the next person to play one of them would get the 5-pointer. And you just work your way down the stacks of tiles. And as I was showing you the icons before, again, you can see here the concrete truck. That's these for the green wheelbarrow. These for this worker group would allow you to add one of these other tiles to your park, your growing park. And then the bear pit, you can't put anything on. Like I said, you put the statue there at the end. And then you can see on these expansion tiles, that's where the excavators are, and that's what allows you to play these bigger tiles. All right, before we go into a brief partial playthrough to kind of show you how that would work, let me explain these achievement tiles. So on these achievement tiles, and there's actually, I think, 10 different ones that come with the game, and they recommend that you just play with 3 at a time. And so this tile says that if you have these river tiles, they're the only ones that have that sort of L shape. They're right here in the collection. If you have 3 of them making a contiguous lazy river, you would get 10 points if you're the first person to accomplish that. And then underneath is 7 points for the second person. And so depending on the number of players, you would have, if you're only using a 2-player, you just have the top and the second one. But there's 3 tiles for each of these challenges or achievements, and they decrease in points as you go down. This one is for building your bear statues. And so if you can build 2 bear statues on a single play, then you would gain 10 points. And if you can build 3 different panda bear tiles, so they could be the animal homes for the pandas or the animal enclosures. If you have 3 of them, and they don't have to be touching, but if you have 3 of them, then you would get 8 points. And the second person to get 3 panda bear, either homes or enclosure tiles on their board, would get 5, and then down to 2. And so whichever of those that you choose, you would have them in order from highest to least, and the first one to achieve it gets the top tile. Hopefully that's making sense. Let me go to the close-up camera and show you what the other options are for these extra tiles. That's 3. I'll show you the other 7. All right, so these are the top cards or top tiles for each of the other 7 achievements that you can accomplish. The top 3 are the polar bear, goby bears, and koala bears. So the first person to build 3 different structures or place 3 different polyominoes of the polar bears tiles gets this one, and then the goby bears and koala bears works the same way. This one, in the white concrete truck tiles, there's 4 different shapes. The first person to get 1 of each of the 4 different shapes in their park would earn that one. This one is, if you get the orange tiles, which are those single tiles with the orange numbers on them, and the main board I'll show you again. If you get all three of yours, because you can end up only ever having three, because there's only three excavators in the game. I'll show you why in a second. But if you get all three of them touching orthogonally, not diagonally, so flat sides have to touch. If you're the first person to do that, you would get 9. And then for the green tiles, the toilets, the playgrounds, the water, lazy rivers, and the food rows, if you get 6 of them touching orthogonally in any pattern, not just this pattern, but any pattern, you would get those points. And then if you get 3 rows of food court in a row, straight line. So you can see it shows you kind of what tile you need and then what they need to be oriented as. So 3 food rows in a row. And so that's what those other 7 achievements are of the 10. And again, the rules recommend that you choose 3. All right, let's go back to the main board. So just to make sure you understand this tile, it's the tiles over here, these big ones with the orange numbers on them. You have to get the 3 connecting. They don't have to be connecting in this pattern, but they have to be connecting, touching on flat sides orthogonally on your park. And the reason you can only ever get 3 is because every one of the park tiles where you grow your park only ever has 1 excavator, and none of the starting tiles have one. So your parks have a maximum of 4 tiles when you're done. So you start with the main tile and you can add 3 more to it. So since all of these only ever have 1, the most you could ever have in the end are 3 of those orange animal enclosure tiles from here. So that's why it only shows 3, and you'll need to get 3 for it to earn you the award. All right, so in the game then, as you're getting started, the first player, so we'll make this player 1, they get a toilet, and they're going to put that somewhere in their park. And the next player gets a playground. And if you're playing with 4 players, the third one would also get a playground, and the fourth one would get a food court street. But if you're playing with 3 players, the third person gets the food court street. And so those are the starting tiles. So you get the game set up, you choose your achievements, you get all the tiles laid out, you have 2 stacks, 6 deep each of the expansion tiles for growing your park, and you get your starting tiles. And then the rules are, as you place your tile, you have to place a tile every turn if possible. If not, you can pass and just take a tile from one of these green ones. If you can play a tile, though, you must play it. You also must play your tile touching one of the previous tiles you've played. So you can't just play it in space somewhere else on your park. They have to be touching. So the first player might look and see, okay, I am going to place this one here, the toilet, over the people. And by placing it over the people, they would get to choose an expansion to their park. And they could place it on the left, on the top, or on the right and grow their park. They cannot put it below the entrance, so they have to line up here, here, here. Those are the only 3 options. So I'll just put that here. And so they don't actually get a tile, so it might be kind of a risky move, but now their park is larger. All right. The second player can look and see, well, they've got all these different areas, and you can spin it, you can rotate it, you can put it in any place. You just can't cover the bear pit. So they might say, you know what, I want to make sure that I have another green tile to start with. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to cover a wheelbarrow. And so they would get to choose any of these 4. And let's say they decide they're going to start on their lazy river. So they're going to pick a tile of the lazy river. And whenever you pick a tile, you don't put it immediately on your board. You just put it in your storage area. The third player comes over here and sees, you know what, if I put this here or here, I would actually cover 2 tiles at once. So they decide that they're going to put this here and cover up a concrete truck and a green wheelbarrow. So they place that there, and they get to choose which one of these do they want and which one of these do they want. And so they decide, you know what, I'm going to start working on the panda bears. So they get the 6-pointer, and you can see underneath it now is the 5-pointer. So they're going to put that in there for their concrete truck icon that was underneath. And then they get to pick one of these, and they may want to just pick a small toilet because they may think, you know, at some point I may have that one little spot that I just need to fill. Or they could take a river. They can choose whatever they want. Let's say that they're going to also work on their lazy river. So they put their lazy river tile down, and now we come back to the first player. Now, unfortunately, because the first player chose to cover their workers, they added to their park in size. They have a whole other tile now, but they don't have any tiles to place. So basically they have to pass this turn in terms of placing a tile and just choose one of these 4. And let's say that they want to see if they can cover a lot of tiles next time, so they're going to choose this one. And as you can tell from the limited space I have here, we're a little bit out of room, so I'm just going to put theirs above. And we'll just go a couple more plays to help you kind of see, but I don't think you need to see too much of it, the playthrough, in order to understand how it works. Then we go to player 2. They have one tile in their collection, so they can decide how they want to play it. And let's say they decide they're going to play this way. They have to make sure that that tile is touching one of the other tiles that they've already placed. So they put it this way to start their lazy river, and it covered a concrete truck. So then they can choose any of these that they want. And let's say they decide they're going to start with the Gobi Bears. So they pick that one as their white concrete truck. And I don't know if you can see the emblem, but there's a white concrete truck right here, right in this section. There's a green wheelbarrow right here in this section. There's the orange excavator right here for this big section. So again, the iconography on the game is really pretty easy, and once you understand the flow, it's also quite easy to play. Then we come to player number 3. Now they have 2 tiles, but they can only play one. You can only ever play 1 tile per turn. And so let's say they decide they are going to look at this tile, and again, you can flip it any direction you want. You just have to make sure it touches a previously played tile. So let's say they put it around here. They can't cover up where the bear statue is going to go, but by putting it here, they're covering a green wheelbarrow. And so they're going to get to choose another one from this green wheelbarrow area. And they already have one lazy river, and let's say they're going to try to go for this achievement here of putting 3 lazy rivers together. And so they're going to take another lazy river to see if they can keep that going. And we're back to player 1, and player 1 only has 1 tile to choose from, so they have this food court. And now that they have this food court, they can place it anywhere that's touching the tile that's already there. So they could place it here, they could place it here, they could place it here, they can place it any direction. So they're going to place it here. By placing it here, it's touching that one. It's actually on the next tile over, and it's covering 2 green wheelbarrows. And so now they'll get to choose 2 of these. And they see these guys are kind of racing ahead for those lazy rivers. And so instead of working on the lazy river, and they already lost a turn where they couldn't even play a tile, they're going to get the one that's worth the most tiles coverage in terms of tile coverage. And they're just going to take 2 of these food court tiles. And that's their turn. Back to player number 2. The only tile they have is this Gobi Bear House. And so if they put it here, you can see it would cover the green wheelbarrow and the worker crew. And so they would get to choose one of these. And unfortunately, by the way they've chosen to do this, they've sort of cut off their river. And so they may not really want to worry too much about the river anymore. Didn't have a lot of real deep planning here as I was playing these parts. But as they're thinking of this green one, they may want to think, well, if I did a green food court there, I could cover this and fill this whole spot in. They could do another lazy river here and make this corner, but they may want to see where else their new tiles come down. So they're going to take this and add that to their collection. Because they covered up the worker crew, they're also going to get to choose one of these 2, and you can only ever choose one of the 2 that is on the top. And so let's say they decide they're going to choose this one, and again, you're not going to be able to see it, but they're going to place it at the top. All right, we'll just go one more turn for each player, and I think that'll be a good enough idea of the playthrough so you get a feel for it. All right, now this player is going to try to be a little bit smarter about putting their lazy river together so that they can get them in a contiguous fashion organized on here. So they're going to say, let's put it here so that they can run it off the board and then connect to maybe another one on the board over here to the side. And by placing it there, they covered the workers and a concrete truck. Well, they already have one of these panda homes, so if they take the next panda home, they'll get 5 points, and they'll also be able to start working towards getting 3 of the panda tiles in their park to race for this one as well. So they're going to take the panda tile for their concrete truck tile, and then they also get to choose one of these. Now they want to make sure if they want their river to grow and place it out this way so they can keep their lazy river going, they're going to want to make sure that they choose one that doesn't have this in their way. And it looks like since this one's pretty far over on the side, that would be a good one for them to choose, and they could place it right there. All right, I'm going to move these out of the way so you can see their park. And like I said, we'll just do one more turn for each player. All right, back to player one. So they only have 2 tiles to choose from. They're both the same. And so they may want to think about how could they cover the most different features. And so if they put it here, they can cover an excavator and they can cover that tile, or sorry, the worker square. So by doing that, they could choose another one of these and then potentially extend this road going for that longest road if that was one of the achievements. And so maybe they would grab this and extend their park. And then they, like I said, they also, now they're the first ones to get an excavator covered. And so they are going to get to choose any of these. And they don't have any other animals out there. They saw that this third player over here is really racing for the pandas. And so they may want to try to just pursue something else, or they may want to try to get into the race with the pandas, but they've already got 2, so it might be hard to catch up. So let's say they decide, you know, they're going to go for the polar bears. No one even has any polar bears yet, so they might have a better chance of just kind of monopolizing in that. And so they'll take the 8-pointer and put it into their collection. Player number 2 only has 1 tile, and like we said, they'll probably pick right there, and they can cover another green, maybe grab another lazy river so they can fill in this spot on their next round. And then we come back to this player, and they want to continue their lazy river. And so they could go this way, but then you can't have your park ever go in front of the entrance. It's like there's a road out here or something. So they wouldn't want to orient it that way because then they couldn't get the 3rd river tile. So they would need to orient it this way so that later they could expand here and keep their river going to win that bonus. And so by putting it there, they actually do get to choose another tile because of the workers there, and they could pick a tile, just making sure that when they line it up, it wouldn't bother their river. So if they take this one, they could line it up there, and it would be great for their river. All right. So I hope that gives you an idea about how the game plays. You've seen 3 or 4 different turns here, and all the different icons being used at least once. Just one thing that I'll highlight, and I won't play until we achieve it, but let's say on the next round this player did go ahead and play this in the corner, they would get the concrete mixer, they would get to choose one of these, and they also have covered every square on this tile, so they would also get to choose and be the first one to choose one of these bear statues and put it right in there. So just want to make sure you understood how those bear statues work and when they get played. All right, so I think you've seen kind of how all the pieces work, how you build your park, how you expand your park, how you play the polyominoes, and some of the achievements that you could be pursuing. So now that we've talked about the game, let me talk a little bit about final scoring. So in the end, you're going to have a completed park, and the game ends when one player, at least one player, has finished all 4 of their tiles. Every square on all 4 of their tiles is complete. And as soon as that happens, the other players get 1 more turn, and then the game is over. Now, it is possible because of tile placement and because of the way the tiles could be used up that you could get to a point where all 3 of the players cannot complete their park and all 3 of the players cannot play any more tiles. And so at that point, it's sort of a stalemate into the game. But normally, we've played it a few times now, and normally you do get to a place where one of the players is able to cover every square in all 4 of their park sections. And at that point, the other 2 players, or in this case, the 3-player game, the other 2 players will get 1 more turn, and then you count up the points. And it's pretty easy. You just look for all the points that are on your park. So at this point, this player has a 6 and a 14. They have 20 points. This player so far has no points. This player only has a 6-point tile on there. But by the time you've played all 4 sections and filled them up or come close to filling them up, you would have a lot more points to add up. But it's easy because you're just counting the points that are visibly shown on your park. So that is how you score. The player with the highest points wins. If there's a tie, you look to see what tiles are in the reserve of the players that are tied. And so if this player was in a tie with another player, you would see, oh, well, they have 5 points in their reserve, and the player with the most points in reserve that haven't been placed would be the winner. If there's still a tie, then you share the win. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand how to play the game, what the rules are, the placement of the tiles, how you win. Now let me give you a quick review. What do I think about the game? All right, so now for the review. What do I think about this game, Barenpark? The first category that I'll rate, and for all the ratings, I give them either a 0, a 1, or a 2. and there are 6 categories, so in the end they will score somewhere between 0 and 12 points. And the first category is production value. And the production for this game, I think, is top-notch. The colors are nice, the iconography is great, the polyominoes are nice, thick, art's really pretty. Yeah, I think the production value, everything is high quality. I would definitely give it a 2 out of 2 for production value. The only negative thing I can really think for the production value is there is no real good insert in this game, and with all the different shapes and pieces, it's like a puzzle putting it back in the box. Maybe they wanted that to be part of the game, but even with the baggies provided, I feel like a better insert would have been really nice for this game. I'm not going to take it down. I'm still going to give it that 2 out of 2, but that is one little knock on the production value. I wish it would have had a good insert, and I've looked at some online that you can purchase. They're almost the price of the game, so I'm not really willing to do that, and I don't think it's needed, but one little thing I wish it had. The second category is theme, and it's a neat theme. It's an interesting theme. You know, you're building a bear park, and one thing I would say about it is we even found ourselves, hey, I want my lazy river to go around this one, and we sometimes would lose track of trying to win the game and just trying to build a really attractive bear park, or trying to put the toilets in just the right position and the food court in just the right spot. And so I think the theme just really does pull you in, and it's a unique theme, building a bear park. My son was reminded of there was a video game they used to play growing up where they were building zoos on this video game on the computer, and he said it reminded him of that. So I think the theme is really good and draws you in, so I would give that a 2 out of 2. The third category is mechanisms and decision making, and I'm torn on this one, but I think I'm going to settle in on a 1 out of 2 on this one, only because there's just not that many different mechanisms and not deep decision making that you're using here. I like the mechanisms that are there. This is actually the first polyomino game I've played as a board game, and so I found that really entertaining and fun. And you do have to track your points, and if you do the achievement kind of advanced variation, then you have something else that you're looking for. You're sort of racing, but there's not a lot of different mechanisms, and the decision making, while some players could suffer from a little bit of analysis paralysis trying to think too many steps ahead, and you do need to think a little bit ahead, so there is that depth to decision making. I don't think it's quite as deep, and you could say, well, maybe that's a pro. It depends on your goal for the game. So that's why I'm torn, because for what this game is, I think the mechanism decision making is very good. So I was leaning towards a 2, but for my personal taste, I tend to like a little bit heavier games, so I think I'll leave it at a 1. But just so you know, it's really close there. The next category is game flow, and I think the game flow is great. While your other players are working, you can be thinking about what you're doing, kind of figuring out how you're going to position your tiles, and it's pretty quick. You can typically place your tiles, and you're not waiting that long for the other players to go generally. And so I think that's good, and you're paying attention to what they're doing, especially if you're using those achievements in the advanced variant, because you want to make sure you're kind of racing for those different things. Am I going to be able to get this done before them? You're also trying to plan ahead. And so that game flow, there's plenty to think about while you're waiting for your turn to come back around. And the turns are pretty quick. So I think the game flow is really good, and I would give it 2 out of 2. The next category is replay value. And this is another area where I think it's going to take a little bit of a ding for me. We played it 3 times, and the first 2 times I pretty much sort of accidentally followed almost the same pattern. And the third time I had to kind of force myself to try new things. And so I could see, I'm not bored of it at all. I mean, we only played it 3 times. I can see us getting dozens of plays out of this. But I do think after 8, 10 plays, I'm going to start to feel like, okay, the game's starting to feel a little bit samey. Now, there is the Bad News Bears expansion, and we don't have that, but it looks really cool. It adds these 3-dimensional monorails to it and 2 other modules. I think it adds grizzly bears, and I forget what the 3rd module is. But if we had that expansion, I think that it would probably maybe raise it up a little bit. We just don't have that yet. So for now, replay value, I think I'll leave it at 1. But I do think we're going to play this quite a bit. And that leads me to the last one, the personal value that I would consider this game as a whole, taking all of the other things into consideration. And I would definitely give it a 2. Even though the mechanisms of decision making are maybe a little lighter than I tend to prefer personally, and even though the replayability might be a little bit held back without getting that other expansion. I don't think either of those are big hits. I think they're reasonable, and especially for this level of a game, I think it's meant to be a lightweight game, kind of an introductory game, and I think it really would shine at that. I think you could really easily teach just about anyone to play this game, especially if you just left that achievement variant out. It's really easy to learn, and you could teach people who don't know much about gaming, really, how to play a polyomino style game. And because we like to teach other people about games, and sometimes we just want a quick, not mind-numbing deep game, we just want something quick that's fun to look at, entertaining, comparing your park with other people and seeing who can build the coolest park. I think that I would definitely give this a 2 out of 2 on personal value. I think it'll stay on our shelf. I think we'll get lots of play out of it just in our own family. But even whenever we have guests over, it's just a fun one I think we could pull out and play with guests as well. So if you count that up, that gives us a 10 out of 12. And so we've got a 10 on the dice roll, that 12-sided die. And that's a pretty high score, and that's why it's going to stay on our shelf, I think, for a long time. So I hope you enjoyed this playthrough or partial playthrough and review. If you did, please leave a comment below. If you saw that I made a rules mistake, make sure you make a note of that in the comments as well. If you have any questions about the game or suggestions, or if you've played the Bad News Bears expansion and want to tell me what you thought about that, again, leave those comments below. I would really appreciate it if you also click the like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. This is Billy, Indiana, signing off.